Antje, you're at one of the state's longest serving offices overseas. Tell us about the operations in Europe and what you do from your base in Munich.
Yeah, the operations in Europe were actually started 40 years ago. So this year we're very pleased to celebrate our 40th anniversary of the state of Georgia having an office in Europe. In Munich, we do, for the state, handle both the export activities. That means that we do support Georgia companies exporting to Europe, as well as FDI, meaning that we do recruit European companies to open up operations in our state of Georgia.
How have you seen companies' perspectives change during the Euro crisis in terms of foreign investment and trade?
Foreign investment was affected positively, so to say, as those companies not longer anymore having successful markets in Europe were looking abroad, especially to the United States, as the US economy was still going relatively strong at that time. With regards to exports, Georgia companies have been exporting at the same pace as they have done before to Europe, even during the crisis, because that crisis actually differentiates between countries in Europe. Some countries were stronger affected than others. Germany, for example, has stayed steady during the crisis, whereas others, such as, for example, Spain, has been affected more.
An example of a company from Germany or from somewhere else in Europe that you've helped to invest in Georgia and put the state on the map for them.
Yes, I'll be glad to. By now, I'm very proud to say we have more than 400 companies from Germany that have invested in the state of Georgia. One of them I would like to name is a company called Umformtechnik, who decided on opening a facility in Dublin, Georgia, from which they will supply various European OEMs and second-tier, first-tier suppliers all over the United States, actually. That will create 200 jobs for Georgian citizens, and we are very pleased to see that investment.
And what's the perception of Georgia among companies in Europe as a destination for investment?
Europeans and Germans have a very good perception of Georgia. They love logistics in our state. They are very impressed with the quality of the workforce that we do have, and they also appreciate the modest cost of doing business.
Nils, you've been with the state's office in Munich for about 7.5 years, and how have you seen Georgia's export relationship with Europe play out over those 7 years?
Yeah, I'm pleased to say that we've seen an increase in the activity of trade year by year. In the beginning, when I joined the office, I was the first full-time trade manager joining the European office. Trade and investment was a little separated, and we've seen also by communities and companies an increase in interest in exporting to other destinations, and I'm covering Europe with the exception of the UK and Ireland, so continental Europe is my territory. I think communities also got greater interest in trade now, because they realize that trade is the flip side of investment.
Right.
So companies who export become international companies, they have international business partners, they travel, and they ultimately become ambassadors of their respective communities and of Georgia.
That's very interesting. And over the past few years, I think now Asia makes up a larger proportion of our exports than Europe does from the state of Georgia, but there's now talk about a transatlantic free trade agreement. I was wondering if you have any thoughts on what that might address and some of the trade barriers that might be taken down as a result of that.
I think we were very excited when we first heard about that negotiations supposed to start this summer. We're at a very preliminary stages, obviously, but I have high hopes in the free transatlantic trade zone, because it doesn't not only eliminate duties, more importantly, I think we should think about what we call hidden trade barriers. For instance, you need a crash test for an American car in the United States, and you need a separate crash test in the European market. For aerospace companies, you have FAA approval in the United States, and you have EASA, the European Aviation Safety Agency in Europe. So these two sets of norms and regulations, I think if we not necessarily remove all of them, that would be fantastic, but I think in a process eliminate or harmonize this, this I think would be a great opportunity for companies.